Salute, MobTube. How is everybody today? So, listen, we have a special guest, okay? Many of you have gotten to know Don Berlin over the last couple of weeks. Awesome guy, without a doubt, very knowledgeable. Has helped me out on many, many shows, and I know you guys all love him. We are now going to get a chance to meet his better half, Kimberly. All right? So, let me say hi to a couple of people in the chat, and then I will introduce Kimberly to everyone. Miss Can't Be Wrong, Dave, Davis Dean, Jane Creek, Sven Larson, Iceman's Poison Cheeseburger. What else we got? Miss Charlie Steen. Don Berlin is here as well. He's all ready to watch and make sure I do good. I'm sure he will be critiquing me after the show. Jesse Roth, Psycho. Good to see you guys. Now, let me introduce everyone to Kimberly L. Berlin.
Hi.
How are you today, Kimberly?
I'm good. I'm feeling much more settled now that I'm on, because there was a minute or two there of not being able to connect and having a minor panic attack, but now I'm all settled. So this is a real honor to be here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Kimberly. It's an honor to have you. We all love your husband, and I have a feeling we're going to like you a lot more than we like him.
Well, he's a very special human being, that's for sure. I've been married to him for 22 years, and he's the love of my life. What can I tell you? So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so this is really, really cool, actually, because I was saying to you before that I've known you, I've seen you, I've heard your voice, I've watched Don on the show for I don't know how long, and so to be here, it's kind of surreal, right? So anyway, yeah. So.
All right, well, listen, I'd like to start off by talking to you about your actual own personal recovery. Now, we do want to get into, how you got involved in this field and things like that. I'm sure, obviously I have some questions for you, and I'm sure some of the audience will too. But if you could start off by telling us about your own experience with addiction and your journey to recovery.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. So I am Kimberly, Kimberly Berlin, and my sober date. So first of all, I'm an alcoholic and a former drug addict, and that I'll explain why former in a minute. My sober date is November 27, 1994. So I'm just turned 28 years sober, which
congratulations.
Thank you. It has been a remarkable journey. There's just no two ways about it. I had my first drink when I was 2, and didn't stop after that. I grew up in the south of France in the 50s. And so, it was very common for kids to be given wine at lunch or dinner, what have you. My parents were not all there. My mother was an alcoholic. Father was definitely alcoholic and rageaholic. So, to them, it's like, oh, haha, the kid's having wine. Isn't that funny? Yeah. And it just progressed from there for me. By the time I came to America, we got to I'm an American, but I grew up in Europe for years, and then finally came to the States after my parents divorced. And so the first time we went out, I asked for a glass of wine at a restaurant. I was all 10 years old, and people were horrified. The waiter looked at me like, what, And my mother became very sort of mortified and like, we don't do that in public. And I'm like, yeah, but we've done that for 10 years everywhere else. Like, what's going on? So, and alcohol for me at that age and further on was a way to manage emotions that I didn't know how to handle. On the outside, everything was beautiful. Father was in the movie business. Mother had been a model. Everything was beautiful. The home was in magazines, the whole 9 yards. But when you close the door, there was a lot of ugliness. There were fights, there was ranting, there was raging, there were broken bottles, there were police. The mother found out about yet another one of his affairs and tried to throw me out a window one night. So there was an enormous amount of trauma that I grew up around and with, and then had to me as well. So physical trauma, emotional trauma, and then in later years, in my early teens, through my teens, sexual trauma. So alcohol was really a way to numb this out and then be, appear normal.
Yeah.
One of the graces in my story is that I had an amazing talent as a dancer. So I threw myself into the dance, so ballet, jazz, modern, but really focused on ballet. I ended up at the Juilliard School of Music. Don't ask me how. I don't know how that happens. My audition piece was to the Pointer Sisters, Hit the Wang Dang Doodle. So, I mean, go figure, And this was years for the movie where she does the whole show before the conservatory. Anyway, so long story short, as a dancer, I struggled with a few pounds. Dancers always have to be thin. So they sent me to the doctor, the school doctor, and he gave me vitamins to increase my energy. And it took me a while to put 2 and 2 together. I was pretty savvy, but it took me a while to figure out that what I was being given was pure amphetamine.
Oh my God.
So I'm 15, 16 years old. I'm going through the day on pure amphetamine, just dancing my little heart out. And then at night, I got to come down so that I can go to sleep and do it the next day. And so I'm drinking, right? So, and then someone introduced me to opiated hashish. So now I'm on the hash with the opiates. That was fun. And this is
wow.
This is all, the 60s and, back in Europe again, dancing with a British company, and then back to America again. A lot of geographicals in my story. So I won't bore you, but fast forward to 1981, I was living in Colorado. By that time, I had a full-blown cocaine addiction, and I was very fortunate. I was dating a dealer, so I had everything I needed.
There you go.
Yeah, funny how that works out, right?
Yeah,
and his best friend was Peruvian. And back in those days, the travel was just, so easy. We didn't have scanners, nothing. And we pick up this guy from Denver airport, and he'd get to our house and he'd pull off his boots, and he'd have a couple pounds of coke in his boots, right? And he was, crazy. It was just crazy life. But broke up with the boyfriend, got a bad batch, and literally the walls started melting. And I suddenly freaked out because I was not in control like I was before. And so it was May of 1981. I literally was down on the floor of my little apartment. And I said, "Dear God, if you get me out of this alive, I will never touch a drug again." And I came out of it alive, because back in those days, in the this is now in the 70s, if you admitted you used drugs, went to a hospital, or anything, they treat you, but then they'd send you to jail because it was illegal to use even. So, I didn't want to go to jail. So I woke up the next day. I was alive, very, very bad shape, but alive. And I never used a drug again. That was it. I got scared straight. But the feelings, the emotions, the residual of trauma was all there. And so alcohol doubled. Let's just have twice the amount of alcohol to take the edge off. And that's pretty much by around 81 is pretty much when my alcoholism really took off. It went from heavy drinking to a full-blown alcoholic. And I say it jokingly, but it's absolutely true. From that point on, I had about 15 careers, not jobs, careers. I figured I could try my hand at solar homes. So I built some solar homes. I sold solar, this, that, and the other. That didn't go so well. So then I thought, well, let me just be a photojournalist. So I move across the world to go be a photojournalist. Yeah. But I got drunk, fell over too many times. So let me go do something else. So I'll open a restaurant in Spain, crazy, right? Just totally crazy. When I look back on it, I'm like, who was this person, right? Yeah. I don't recognize that person, but there she was. And long story short, ended up in Fort Lauderdale. I had come back to America again for like the third or fourth time with no credentials, had lost all money, had been homeless in Morocco, literally. I was sleeping in a posh, empty, abandoned Pasha's palace. And nobody knew I was there. I was like, you know, literally living in the ruins of this place. I was able to get fresh water, you know, able to get some food here and there, but homeless. And I begged, borrowed, and stole my way back to America for a ticket back to America, got here, and I had nothing. So the first crazy idea in my head towards sobriety was get an education that might help you. Right?
Yeah.
So I went to school and I got my bachelor's in social work because it was very interesting. There are a lot of different things you could do in social work, and I'd lived in third world countries. Why not? So then in the first semester of my master's in social work, I decided to get sober. I do not recommend doing that.
Didn't work out well for you?
It was a little tough, right? But
Yeah.
I somehow managed to graduate with a 4.0, summa cum laude. It was really tough, really, really tough. I lost a good job because I got sober. I suddenly was behaving properly, right? And, you know, holding, I don't know, I had 3 different jobs. I mean, literally cleaning bachelor's apartments just to pay for school. You know, it was tough. It was tough. But I threw myself into AA. I couldn't afford treatment. So I threw myself into AA because that's really all there was.
Yeah.
And I latched on to a few very important principles. And that got me through the worst of the detoxing and the post-acute withdrawal. And those principles were really pretty simple. There is something bigger than me, for sure. And you can call it God, you can call it nature, right? You can call it cosmos, you can call it the divine, call it what you will, but it isn't me. Yeah. And if I can let myself surrender to that energy, if you will, then that energy will take better care of me than I have so far. And that got me through. It really got me through. It also, I learned how to be honest, really honest with myself. I learned how to finish what I started, right? How to be where I said I was going to be at what time I was going to be, right? And little by slowly, I put my life together. I went off to do a PhD, but unfortunately ran out of money, and it's a whole long story. And if ever there was a time I was going to relapse, that was it, because I felt like such a failure. You know, like, okay, I've completely failed. I didn't do the doctorate. You know, I got 4 years in and then ran out of money. But I found out ultimately that I was never supposed to do that, because I ended up in Washington, D.C., for an interview with a company due to I was very specialized in welfare reform and social policy, and I'd written papers and presentations. I was doing very well. So I had this job interview, and who do I meet but a man by the name of Don Berlin, the first day that I'm there for the job interview. Yeah. I get the job, I meet the man, and that was it. That was it. My life turned around. 5 years sober. And and there I was, you know, in sobriety. I've faced, you know, disappointment of not getting a PhD. I'm a cancer survivor. Lost my mother, lost my aunt, you know, had some pretty difficult times in terms of just managing things like career change, in terms of going from one aspect of social work to another aspect, challenging times in terms of utter exhaustion, trying to reach goals, you know, but always turning everything over to this, whatever it was that I believe in, letting it take the show, you know. And so far it's so good. And 28 years later, here I am. I'm now in private practice as a licensed clinical social worker, certified substance abuse counselor, master addictions counselor, IFS therapist, and host of other things. My kid sisters tease me and say that there are more letters in after my name than in my name, but a whole bunch of certificates that I did postdoc even. So, you know, and I doggedly determined to reach my goals, or to, you know, be able to get to that next step. And that next step was, you know, dear God, I want to be able to help people. So please make me a vehicle for, you know, for that, to transform other people's lives the way my life has been transformed. And so that's
listen, that's incredibly commendable. I mean, you've dedicated your life to helping other people at this point.
Yeah, that's what I do, day in and day out. Yeah.
There's
got off the client at 3:30 this afternoon, started at 9. So yeah.
No greater satisfaction, I'm sure, than really getting to help somebody and help them change their lives.
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, your story is unbelievable. I mean, they need to make a movie. I'm convinced at this point, between you and Don.
No,
there needs to be a movie made about your lives.
I think that's my next book. I just finished my first book, but I think the next book is the story of me and Don, because it really is. It's a very, very unique story. Two very unique people, and how we came together, and how it just was too. I mean, you know, there are no coincidences, right? No coincidences, Chris.
No.
So.
Well, I don't know if Don ever told you my story, but I actually met my wife. She was a nurse in the rehab I attended. So, you know, similar situation.
And I love it. And then you took one look at her and that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
And I tell you, that's when you know, when you least expect it, when you're least looking for it, and then they show up.
Yeah. Oh, always. It never happens when you're looking. Never. So going back through your story, there's a couple of things I want to ask. See, I've had friends and even relatives who would like to give their babies or toddlers a sip of a beer or a taste of some wine, even in one case, a little drop of hard liquor. So can you elaborate on how terrible an idea that is for anybody to do? Because that can absolutely spark the beginning of a lifelong addiction.
Amen. Yeah. And I'm going to allow my opinionated parts to come out.
Go right ahead.
Because I know this forum, so it's all right.
Yes.
So there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to do that. A lot. So first of all, this thing here, right, our brain, is an absolutely unbelievable, remarkable instrument. It's a remarkable organ. All right.
Yeah.
And it begins to form in vitro, right, in the uterus. And then when we're born, we have to go through this channel. So the brain kind of gets, the cranium kind of gets smushed, and then it comes back out again, right? So amazingly, it doesn't get smushed enough so it gets destroyed, but just enough to come out and say hello to the world. And then over many months, years, up until approximately 25 years of age, it develops. You don't have a developed brain at age 5 or age 10 or 20. It's 25 to 30 before your brain is actually developed. So while it's being developed, and while as humans we're learning basic functions, speech, motor facility, mobility, motor facility, coordination, language, all of that, understanding, verb, words, that kind of thing. Our neurons are small parts in there that are really microscopic, of which we have 100 trillion. Right, are trying to form and come together in a way that will facilitate and support growth, life, and thriving. Now, if you put anything into a brain that isn't a nutrient, or healthy food, liquids, water, right? A mineral, vitamin, right? The brain doesn't quite know what to do with it. If you give a small person alcohol, the brain will take that alcohol. It doesn't quite know what to do with it, but it's going to push it down through these channels in the brain anyway, because that's what it does, whether it's blood or, whatever comes into the bloodstream is going to go through into the brain. So now this alcohol comes streaming in, and it's kind of difficult to explain, but it's like a series of keys and locks in our brain. Yeah. And the alcohol will come down this stream, like my arm is the stream, right? It comes on down, and then it hits this lock system. Brain doesn't know what to do with this alcohol, and it goes, what's this, right? Yeah. So, but it contains properties that mimic and mirror other things that are normal, like dopamine, happy, feel good. So it says, oh, okay, well, I guess you're good to go. So it opens up the gate and allows the alcohol to keep on going, which then affects other parts of the brain, like emotion, thinking, functioning, what have you. Now, you give a kid this much alcohol, what's it going to do? What's the damage? A lot. Yeah. Because just this much is going to affect that lock and key system. The brain is going to receive the alcohol, and it will always remember that first hit. There's a reason why they call it chasing the dragon. Yeah. Right? Because it remembers that first hit, and at any point from that point on, the brain will say, I'd like that again, please. I'd like that again, please. And even though the kid doesn't know what that is, eventually in time, it grows up, it sees alcohol, sees this and that. Oh, yeah, I want some more of that. Yeah. And then you're off to the races. So you effectively can give a kid brain damage, right, by giving a young person of any age, actually, alcohol. And the same goes for marijuana. So,
yeah, so many alcoholics that I know or have known, they always have the same story, that their father or somebody in their family would feed them alcohol as a baby or a toddler, or and it usually ends in disaster. Yeah. The other question I had for you is, you mentioned throughout, I guess in the beginning of your recovery, actually, there were some changes you needed to make. And you said one of them was learning to be honest with yourself. Yeah. Now, this, to me, I've talked to my audience about this many, many times. I believe that is one of the most important things you can do, because you have to learn, first of all, that you are responsible for a lot of the chaos and destruction you've caused in your past. You have to be honest about the fact that this, to an extent, is something you did to yourself, and there's changes you need to make to fix it. How much importance would you put on that one tool, so to speak?
95 to 99%. Yeah. There's a passage in the big book that's really powerful. And it's in the How It Works section, chapter 5, I think it is, of rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And even people with the worst kind of mental illness have a chance if they have the capacity to be honest with themselves, right? Yeah. And that's where we have to start, because the reality, Chris, is, and I'm sure you know this, the reality is we've been lying to ourselves with every drink we put in our mouth, or every puff we take, or every, pill that we pop, or whatever we're doing, right? It's like, oh, this is good. Oh, but it's good for me. Oh, but if you were me, you'd drink too. I mean, after all, I had a terrible day. I deserve a drink. I mean, we just come up with endless excuses and rationalizations, right? And then, we wonder why people get pissed off at us, but we don't see that it's what we're doing. So we point the finger right back at them, say, it's you, you're the reason I drink, right? And the next thing you know, we are so torqued in our reasoning, our rational thinking. So the very first, for me, I dropped to my knees on a soccer field because I suddenly realized I had an incident, and I suddenly realized, as this person had looked at me, that what they saw was an alcoholic woman. And I'd never seen myself as an alcoholic woman. And when I saw what he saw, it just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I just dropped to the ground, and I suddenly said, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. I really am.
Being honest with yourself.
That's me, oh shit. It's not my mother, my father, my brother, my uncle, my sister. No, it's me too. And I think that was the moment, not only of surrender, but of being honest, of really accepting, this is my condition. Now that I want to clarify for folks on here today that doesn't mean you're a bad person.
No.
At all, right? It just means I have a condition that has taken over. Yep. And when I can be honest about that condition, then I can begin to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you used the word accepting, because I was going to say, I think just being honest with yourself in general, learning to do that, it goes hand in hand with acceptance. Because another thing I found extremely important is you have to learn to accept some harsh realities, the things that, like in my case, I had to learn to accept that a lot of the things and people I blamed for my addiction were not their fault at all. It was my own. I had to learn to accept that people that were angry with me because of things I did during my addiction were absolutely my fault, and that they were right for being angry. They had every right to. So you have to know how to accept some pretty harsh realities in order to recover.
Right. And when we accept, it's interesting when the more we accept responsibility for what we've created, right, the greater freedom we have. And that's sort of it's like a conundrum, but it's very true, right? Because that now we're not burdened with blame and guilt and shame. We're telling the truth, and we're open and honest, and all of a sudden we're knowing a new freedom and a new happiness, just like the promises say, so yeah.
Well, listen, thank you for all that. I want to ask you next, what since you're still working in this field today, because I find that over the decades different treatment approaches have changed. Different medications have been used, stuff like that. I think different types of counseling, stuff like that, have been used. So what types of treatment approaches are being offered to active addicts today?
Good question. And I'm glad you've asked this, because I think so many people shy away from treatment or getting help, even, in the therapeutic domain, whether it's for an addiction or not, right? Because they misunderstand and don't understand what the process is. For years we had Freud, and everything was your mother and your father, Then, Carl Jung tried very hard to put some spiritual sort of spin in there, but he was, laughed out of town. And then you had the rationalists. Right, you had the lab rat kind of experimenters of behavior, became very scientific. Let's watch this behavior and see what happens to with this behavior. So you ended up with a behaviorist, and the behaviorist basically took over. Unfortunately, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Cognitive behavioral therapy is all fine and well, but, tell an addict to think their way out of a drink ain't going to happen. Not in the throes of something, really huge, right? And, tell a heroin. So, and then there was moderation management. So my comment to that is, well, tell a heroin addict to moderate their use. That ain't going to happen. It's ridiculous. No.
Yeah, it's absurd. Yeah,
it is absurd, and it's irresponsible in my opinion, right? So then we had at one point we had this the real, like, knock some sense into their head, tough love, and all that, break down their ego, and all that did was just crush people, just crush them. Okay, that didn't work, right? Yeah. Then we were back to another kind of, rigid thing. Then slowly in the 2000s to 2010, something slowly started to sprinkle in. And it's very interesting what started to sprinkle in. The whole concept of integration came forward. So what does that mean? Well, we start to bring in the good from all different avenues. So let's try a little meditation. What does that do for the addict or, a person in recovery, right?
Yeah.
Oh, calms the brain. What do you know? Let's try some breathing exercises. What does that do? Oh, adjust the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Well, that's a good thing to do. So the next thing you know, how about nutrition? Nutrition, that's a good thing. They're eating pure sugar. No wonder they're really good for Klimt. So little by slowly, different paradigms started to come in. Yoga. Wow, what a concept. We could get our body in shape. We could, eat healthily. We could pray. We could meditate. We could sing. We could draw. We could do all these different things. And more, I think spiritual practices have come to the fore, right?
Yeah.
So now we're really seeing more of what is this disease called addiction? Yeah, it's a brain disease. That's true. Yeah, it's also a physical disease. That's true. But at the bottom line is it's a disease of the soul. Yeah. So why aren't we healing the soul? Right? Very true. My favorite two favorite practitioners are Gabor Mate, who is unbelievable. He just came out with a new book called The Myth of Normal. Not this thick, but I'm telling you, you'll flip every page. Just an amazing book. And he is really the preeminent addictionologist in the world. He really is amazing. So Gabor Mate, he also wrote a book called In the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts, and phenomenal book that's about addiction specifically. The Myth of Normal is about addiction and then mental health. And then the second person who I think has done an enormous sort of breakthrough in psychotherapy and addiction is someone by the name of Richard Schwartz. And he developed an approach called internal family systems, which is shortened to IFS. And basically, it completely busted the paradigm that we're this one person and I am bad or I am good and it's all here. And instead, he said, wait a minute. What if we have parts of us that create a whole? And discovered through work with his clients that that's exactly what we are. We even use it in our day-to-day language. Well, part of me wants to go to the party. Nah, part of me wants to stay in my jammies, Part of me wants to tell this person exactly what I think of this SOB. No, part of me says, no, I don't think I should be saying that to my boss. I might get fired. But we talk like this, right? And what Schwartz discovered, and it's been 40 years in the making, and now it's the hottest thing since sliced bread, is that we have protective parts of us that operate at certain levels to protect the hurt or wounded parts of us. And around all of that, we have something called our self, with a capital S, self. And that self is the seat of our consciousness. That self is the who of who we are. And it has this remarkable quality and energy. And when other parts are helped to calm down, self leads. And we've all had this experience of being in the flow, like whether you're running or you're playing tennis or you're playing music or, you're on a show and it's just clicking and everything's just go, 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 right? Yeah. It's just in flow. That's your self energy leading. So IFS is my primary approach now with clients in terms of helping them to relieve and release and heal from trauma, and to access that self energy and have that lead day in, day out. It's remarkable stuff. And I'm watching clients just heal like I've never seen anything like it before. That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing.
Well, I wanted to ask you, so is there, other than obviously there's different types of pharmaceuticals, medication that are prescribed based on what the person's addiction is. But is there a one-size-fits-all clinical approach to addiction in general? Or would you treat an opiate addict different than, say, an alcoholic or a cocaine addict?
Yeah, the answer is yes, I would. And here's why. There is no one size fits all. And that's, I think, where treatment for addiction really fell short in the 90s. They tried to just, cookie cutter everything.
Yeah.
And that is not the way to go. Each one of us is an individual. We're not a cookie cutter, right? So my personality is different than your personality, or different from Miss Can't Be Wrong, or Dell is my name, right? We're all different. We're all unique human beings. We have unique DNA, quirks, personalities, talents, gifts, what have you. You can't pigeonhole that and say, no, this is how you're going to fit, right? So what folks have started to figure out is, because they lumped everybody together too, and that wasn't working, and what they're figuring out now is, whoa, if you have a room full of people, here some are heroin addicts, some are alcoholics, some are coke heads, and some are crack heads. Well, guess what? You're going to have a real shit show happening here, because nobody's going to be able to relate to anybody else, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
it's just not, But if you have a treatment approach where we say, okay, here's these group of people who've been addicted to heroin, and we're going to approach each one individually within a framework, right? And attend to each individual's need, then not only can they share with each other their experiences and their strength and their hope, right? But we have an approach that's going to address the areas of the brain that heroin definitely hits, which is, that's a whole nother discussion, but also the impact that heroin has on our soul, on our being as a human being, and why heroin instead of alcohol, right? How deep was this trauma that we needed to numb it out with heroin, or coke, or whatever it is that we chose. And then we look at that. So in detox, there are definitely medications that we give to individuals to ensure their safety in detox, right? That's sort of standard medical procedure, particularly with alcoholism. Alcoholism is the only withdrawal that can kill you.
Yep.
And that's, a lot of people don't realize that, and they try to cold turkey, and then, they end up having a heart attack. So there are specific drugs that, calm the system down and avoid DTs and that kind of thing. Heroin addicts, actually, there are some drugs as well. Basically, it's 5 days of the flu and feeling like crap.
There's no way around that, right?
Yes, there really isn't. I mean, they can give, some anti-seizure medication, or they can give some, tranquilizing kind of medication, but the body is going to withdraw. And it's going to withdraw in alcohol too. I mean, you are going to feel like crap for 5 days,
Oh, trust me, I've been there several times.
Yeah, right. So yeah, me too. It's not, I don't want to ever go back there, right? Never. But, once that stage of the game has, sort of, you've survived that, then the process is relearning. Let's learn who we are, how we are, and learn how to live, and really at that point, if you're in treatment, if you're in a good treatment center, I mean, there are good ones and there are bad ones, let's face it, and it's a whole nother conversation of, the I call it the conspiracy of treatment centers, particularly in today's world, because, $120,000 for 28 days, really, people? I mean, really? We make it so unaccessible. Really? We're going to do that?
It's big business. It really is big business. It's a shame.
And big lobbying as well, which is why I got out of that end of the business. I once was the director of a methadone clinic. And that was very interesting. Unfortunately, bringing in concepts like NA meetings or, group discussion meetings or things like that got me fired. So my own integrated approach was not appreciated, much less talking to people about what, their brain, or meditating, or giving addicts breath exercises to try and regulate. No, just give them the methadone and shut up. So, and so I got to see with methadone that really all you're doing is you're just staving off the inevitable, which is relapse, because that's what's going to happen. Very, very few people get out or off methadone. I had one client who it took him 3 years to get off the last gram of methadone that he was on. 3 years. And I mean,
it's like a permanent Band-Aid, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, it is as addictive as heroin. And a lot of the folks that came through the clinic would stock up and then sell it on the street. So, what are we doing, right? We really have to ask ourselves what we're doing. And it's a tough question with very few answers, but I think that the integrated approach definitely is the way to go, bringing in modalities that we know work, right? And avoiding this rigidity of one size fits all. This is the way you're going to do it. We're going to, push you into this little box and pray for success. Treatment we're not doing something. We're definitely doing something wrong when treatment centers are still at 60% relapse rate, 60% recidivity.
Is that right? Wow.
60%. Some say it's 60 to 70%. That means that 30% are coming out and making it. You've heard Don's story about, being in treatment, and I think he and one other person are the only ones that are left alive. I mean,
I believe it. My rehab, I was in there with 12 people, and I kept in contact with them. And within a year, every single one of them but me relapsed. Which
treatment center did you go to?
I went to a place called Clarity Way in Hanover, PA. It's owned by Promises, I believe. It's
I know.
Excellent facility. Unfortunately, they closed. They reopened now as something else.
But. So and I mean, so we see that. So I mean, this is one of the reasons your show is so important, I think, because it gives an opportunity to open up this discussion. Sorry, Don just came home.
Right. My dog was barking a few minutes ago.
Daddy's home. I mean, this is you're offering a platform for a really important discussion to be had across the board, right? We're not just talking, okay, it's just, heroin or just alcohol. No, you're giving an opportunity for everyone to have a voice here and to have different opinions about different approaches, right? Yeah. And I think that's what makes your show really powerful. I think it's also the way to do that. It's the way to have that conversation. And in our field, we don't often have the courage to go against the status quo and say, people, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Really, this, you're going to do it this way? Is that really the best way? One of the caveats in my field was that in the very beginning, treatment was given and offered and worked by peers, by people in recovery themselves. That's how Phoenix House started in New York. Former heroin addicts helping other heroin addicts. Well, when I came through in the early 2000s in the treatment field, God forbid that you told a client that you were in recovery. You get fired.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Wow.
Oh, no. I got called on the carpet several times because I actually had the audacity to let slip that, yeah, I'm in recovery. Yeah.
That's ridiculous, because one thing I've found is the best, whether it's a drug and alcohol counselor or even a director of a rehab, whatever it may be, is generally going to be somebody who's experienced it for themselves.
Exactly.
I've had counselors who've never been addicted to anything, and it didn't make any sense to me. We could not relate to each other.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I think makes this field very unique, that in fact, I have good friends who are addiction counselors, and they're not addicts. And, I love them dearly, but they're really falling short of the mark because they can't. When a client is raging about something, they're like, what do I do now? Instead of holding that space and understanding that the person is raging about something because they don't have the numbing agent anymore, and they've got to get this emotion out in order to then be able to say, oh, I get it. I just realized what is happening now, right?
Yeah.
When we push things down, it's like whack-a-mole. You push things down, something else pops up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Allowing them, being able to relate and connect is a huge, huge part of treatment, in my opinion. And also from psychotherapy standpoint, I work with a lot of trauma, a lot of PTSD. And as a trauma survivor, I understand that pain. I understand the tears, the frustration, whatever it is. So whether it's addiction or trauma or anxiety, depression, yep, got the T-shirt, right? So yeah.
That's the number one ingredient, is experience.
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is, truly. Yeah. So I've been so busy talking, I haven't been looking at I don't know how you do this, so following all the chats and talking to someone at the same time.
It's not easy, but I'll tell you what, I was wondering when during this interview I would take questions from the audience. But William Brooklyn, who is currently struggling with alcoholism, he has a good and very common question for you right here. He said, is this really a disease? I make a choice every day to drink. That's a very good question, because a lot of us struggle with whether or not it is actually a disease.
Right. Well, you do make a choice to drink every day. That's true, William. But the reason you're making that choice to drink every day is because you have a disease, right? And the disease is a disease of your brain reward system. All right. So your brain, whether you like it or not, is on automatic pilot and says, gimme, gimme, gimme. So when the levels of alcohol start to drop in your brain, the brain says, alert, alert. And we have to remember that this isn't our thinking mind. This is automatic brain response, right? It's electricity going. That's what it is here, which is quite remarkable. But the moment the levels drop, the brain says, excuse me, I need the levels up. I need to get this back up again, right? And so in that regard, this is a disease of the brain. And that is standard medicine, standard, National Institute of Drug Addiction accepted neurological disease, right? In terms of your choice, yes, you make a choice because the brain is telling you, right?
Yeah.
But in between the choice and what your brain is telling you, there's your soul, there's yourself. And when our self is buried so deep under the pain, we have no other choice but to drink. So with someone who struggles to try and quit, right? And not able to sort of get a foothold, right? I tell my clients this, and I've worked with clients who like a year of constant relapsing before they get that foothold. So this is the mantra that I give them. You cannot drink today. If your ass falls off, you cannot drink today. I don't care if your mother dies. I don't care if you get fired. I don't care if your boyfriend smacks you upside the head. You do not drink today.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't. That is the rule for the day. Now you can drink tomorrow. Tomorrow you are allowed to drink, but not today. So you're going to hang on tight until you go to sleep. And then you go to sleep and you wake up. What day is it?
Tomorrow.
Today.
Oh, today.
You're in today, right? And
Yeah.
what's the rule? What's the mantra?
You are not allowed to drink today. Yes.
And drink tomorrow.
Yeah.
But can't drink today. And, if we can get a day and then another day and another day, it gets easier and easier and easier. And we can start to get that foothold, right? We can start to get that foothold. But I think it's also really important that if we are struggling with trying to quit, there are a lot of resources. There's AA for sure. Not everybody likes AA. I get that. So I bring AA to my clients and they don't even know it. But there is AA. There's also something called Refuge Recovery, which is remarkable. Right?
Yeah, I was involved. That's the one,
Yeah.
I guess you could say, program I took part in. Yes.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And it's based in Buddhism. So there's no God thing, right? Yeah. And it is a remarkable program. So remarkable approach. There's yoga for recovery, right? Also amazing approach. And there's Christian recovery. There is, I'm blanking out here, but there are dozens of different types of approaches to recovery that are not AA based, right? Yeah. Pick one, pick any one. There's also Recovery 2.0, it's called. Kick it up a notch. And that's run by Tommy Rosen. I have to give a shout out to Tommy. R2O.com. Tommy is really the leader, if you will, now of an entire different approach to treatment of addiction. And that is through spiritual, yoga, good health, name it. He's just put it all into the mixer and made this delicious smoothie of recovery, right? So R2O is another way to go. They have meetings, and they're universal meetings. So there's no God business. It's the universe, very Kundalini based, that kind of thing. There's yoga stuff. And so, it's a matter of find your tribe. And when you find your tribe, clicks, right? Yeah. Right. So I hope that helps, William.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I hope everybody's writing this stuff down because a lot of this I'm just learning. This is great to know.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Let me see. Brian Miller said, FBS, tell her that I am a dual diagnosis. I am bipolar and an alcoholic and drug addict, cocaine and heroin. So I don't know if he's looking for advice. I'm not sure. There's not really a question there.
Well, dual diagnosis is important to understand. So that means that we have a mental health diagnosis. And we then also, are addicted to a substance, right? Yes. So in Brian's case, he drinks and he uses cocaine. So, and has bipolar. This is a chicken and the egg kind of thing, which is very interesting because, the question is, were you bipolar before you started drinking, or did you start drinking and using drugs and then get diagnosed as bipolar?
Yeah.
Right. So that's a question between you and your doctor. Right. But 9 times out of 10, what we find is that the individual has a condition, usually traumatic based of some sort. And I can't tell you how many clients tell me, oh, but I had a perfect childhood. Yeah, right. Not. They really didn't. When you start digging in there, terrible, right? Okay, either it's some sort of a trauma within the family system, right? Or something happened to them. And the the psyche, if you will, can't handle it. So what do? They grab a drink, all right, or something to numb it down, numb yourself. All right. So in the process of doing that, you're altering your brain, the structure, this organ that I was talking about before. You're altering it. You're changing it. Well, when we change the prefrontal cortex, when we change the amygdala, when we change the nucleus accumbens in the brain, you're altering the very organ that is supposed to function. Now, all of a sudden, these organs are not behaving the way they're supposed to behave. And the next thing you know, one day you're feeling up and you think you can fly. And the next day you can't get out of bed, you can't move. And you go to a doctor because something's wrong with me. And they say, well, yeah, you're bipolar. So let's put you on a medication, right? But we haven't gotten to the root cause of what caused that. Oh, because I've been drinking or I've been using cocaine. Oh, but why did you do that? What's going on? What's under that? So Gabor Mate has an amazing quote. We really should not ask why the addiction. It's not an appropriate question. What we should ask is, why the pain? What is the pain? Then we'll know.
Yeah.
Because that's all that it's about. It's like I talk about the soul, Gabor Mate talks about the pain, right? Yeah.
So you have to treat the pain to understand the addiction, really, right?
Absolutely correct. Yeah. Truly. I'm thinking, I mean, my brain's going a mile a minute, but I have a client, had a client who just graduated with a year of sobriety, right? When I say graduated, she spread her wings and became free. I was seeing her for 2 years and told me up front right away, I'm not doing that effing fucking AA, so don't even tell me to do it. I'm like, no problem, no problem. I'll bring AA to you. Don't worry about it. And relapsed and relapsed and relapsed. I kept working with her and I kept encouraging her that just take it one day at a time, do the one day, and she'd be great for like 3 weeks and then something would trigger her and then boom. So this went on for about 9 months, right? And in the midst of everything, she had one of these clients told me I had a perfect childhood. Everything was great. And all of a sudden, one day she let it slip. A part of her let it slip that she had been traumatically sexually abused.
Oh, wow.
And up until then, it's like we're talking 6 months, once a week, one-on-one. This is when I had my office before COVID, one-on-one, right? Oh, no, everything's great. I got a great husband. I got a great house. I just can't stop drinking, right? And we got to the crux of things and we started opening up the nut, if you will, right? And looking at what was sitting inside that. And long story short, it took another 3 to 4 months to start healing and coming to terms with all of what had happened. And then one day she came into the office and she said, you told me a long time ago that if I actually did this thing called recovery, and if I actually quit, that my life would change beyond what I could ever imagine. And I said, yes, that's what I told you, 100%. And so she said to me, well, I relapsed this past weekend and it was not the same. Drinking was not the same. In fact, it was fucking miserable. And I said, yeah, I'm sure it was. And she said, so I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm like, good decision. And I had the honor and the privilege of being at her 1-year anniversary.
Oh, that's fantastic.
2 months ago, right? And So really, I mean, yeah, we could have a mental health diagnosis. I mean, she did. She had, I don't know, one thing or the other, but actually it was all perfunctory because really it was the pain, right?
Yeah.
Once she got sober, everything sorted. So her eating got sorted out. Her, I don't know, she had, I don't want to go too far into it, HIPAA and all that, but I mean, she had some things, some quirks, right? They all settled down. So.
Yeah. It's so true. It resonates so much with me because, a big thing in my life, there was a tragedy that took place a long time ago. And, it really did a number on my life. And it was not until, let's say, 14 years later that I went to rehab. And in rehab, through different counseling I got, different psychological, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you could say counseling,
Yeah.
the different groups you take part in, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I learned to kind of let go of that one thing and just say, you know what, it's over. There's nothing I could have done about it then. There's nothing I can do about it now. And it really changed the way I thought about everything from then on. I just decided to let it go.
Yeah.
And it made it 1,000 times easier for me to let the drinking and the drugs go at the same time.
Yeah, part of you was holding on to something, right?
Yep.
And because you had an opportunity to be given some support and direction and good therapy, right? That part of you that was holding on to it for dear life started to just loosen up a bit. I call it softening at the edges, right? And when we soften at the edges a little bit, then, okay, maybe I'll accept, right? And when you do it like this, it's like, right? I'm going to hold on to it for dear life because it's the why of who I am and why I am. But when we start to like uncurl and soften and loosen a little bit, then things open and then we become like that. And then we open this way, right? And that's what happened for you. That I'm sure, a horrible, event, traumatic event was sort of this, and that's, I forgot to mention, when we have trauma, it goes into the cell of our bodies, the cellular structure of our bodies.
Yeah.
Not just brain. So when we have trauma, we freeze. And that freeze, right, becomes a permanent condition which the body needs to get away from. So that's another trigger, if you will, for alcohol and drugs to try and ease this, right? Yeah. So it's another aspect.
It's very interesting how deep it really goes.
Yes, truly. My research is now 10 years and 4 years in the making to write my book, which I just finished. And hopefully it'll get published this year, 2023, probably midsummer. But it's one of the most complex medical conditions that I think we've ever been up against, right? We're finding treatment for cancer and diabetes and heart conditions and, all that stuff. But addiction has baffled everybody across the board for centuries, So yeah, it really is.
It makes sense too, because you can look at a heart, how a heart works, how a liver works, things like that.
Right.
Addiction, it's a totally different thing. There's so many aspects to it: physical, mental, psychological, everything. So yeah, it's no surprise that it's still, there's still in the works, really, of figuring it all out.
Yeah, because each branch of science wants to attack it differently, right? Which is why I think the integrated approach is the way to go about it, because let's look at the neuroscience, let's look at the physiology, let's look at the spirituality, let's look at this, that, and the other. And here's what's very interesting, and that is that psychiatry, psychology, therapy, addiction is the only branch of science where we do not look at the organ that we're treating. So if you break an arm, you go into the ER and you get an X-ray and you will see the broken bones, right? We know what to do with you. Got a heart condition, we'll do an echocardiogram, etc. an MRI, we can take a picture, we know what to do with you, right? But when it comes to addiction and or mental health, we don't take a picture of the brain.
Yeah.
So we're it's a crapshoot. We're like, throwing darts at, well, I think it's a diagnosis, maybe it's a 304.5. Oh, no. So one of the sort of really huge breakthroughs and forerunners of psychiatric work and addiction and all sorts of conditions, ADHD, anxiety, PTSD, it goes on, bipolar, is Dr. Daniel Amen. And he has clinics across the country. It's not cheap, but they're starting to work with insurance companies now, where you go in and you get a brain scan. And then the brain scan is read and determined, like, okay, how bad has your addiction fried your brain? What can we do to heal the brain, right? All of it. And I had one done. It's fascinating. And you could see where I had done drugs. You could see where the alcohol damaged my brain. You could also see where the trauma had damaged my brain. So, the only branch of medicine that does not examine the organ it's treating. Think about that.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Right? Yeah, right. What are your thoughts on antabuse?
Yes, that's what I don't want to keep you too long, but a few more questions if you have time. Yeah,
I'm yours. I think that I think antabuse can be helpful. It can be helpful if you really have, a chronic issue with alcohol. But I don't put it down in any regard, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of it, but I don't disrespect it or put it down and say, that's fluff. No. What I do think is, if one is going to take antabuse, you can't just say that, put that in a silo and say, okay, I'm on antabuse, that's going to be the end of it. You still have to get to the root of the problem, right? You still have to find, you got to look at the pain. What's the pain? What's the trauma? What's the cause? What is this part of me that has been wanting to numb out? What is what, So the antabuse can help get you through the worst of, I think the average length of time is 3 to 6 months on antabuse for really heavy duty problems, right? But you still have to approach addiction, or I should say recovery. You still have to engage in recovery. So just taking a drug like antabuse, naltrexone, those kind of things, yeah, it's okay, that's great. But are you in therapy? Are you in a supportive environment? Are you supported with, a community of, do you have your tribe? Yeah.
Yeah. The problem I found with antabuse is that you could just not take it. It's very simple. Your addiction, your mind, the addictive part of your mind, or the addicted part of your mind, is going to tell you, just stop taking it. I want to drink.
That's correct. That's very correct. Yeah.
It's not like an injection you get that lasts a certain amount of time. It's up to you to take it every day.
All right. And when I was working in treatment center, I mean, we've had clients on antabuse, and they're like, yeah, so I just decided not to take it this weekend and get drunk instead. I'm like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. You're putting an addict in control of their own situation, and no addict is in control of their own situation.
Not a good thing. Not sensible. Not helpful.
No, I got it prescribed to me, and it was so expensive, first of all. And then after I put some thought into it, I said, you know what? I know me. I'll take it for a couple of days, and then I'll say, fuck this. I want to drink. And that's it. I'm back in the same boat.
I love it.
Another question. What about, you said about alcohol being the only drug that can, the withdrawal can kill you from, basically. What about benzos? Can't the withdrawal from benzos kill you, or no?
No. I mean, it can, the withdrawal from benzos is dangerous. All right. It is dangerous. And everything is by degree, right? If you're a functional alcoholic, you're not necessarily going to die because you cold turkey. But if you're, doing a half a gallon to a gallon a day,
that's what I was doing. Yeah.
Then you can detox. You need detox. I mean, Jerry Garcia died of a heart attack as he was being wheeled into a treatment center. So but I suddenly forgot the question.
The benzos. It's all right. Listen, it happens to the best of us. Trust me. No, the withdrawal from benzos, whether or not
benzos withdrawal. So, but so if someone's got a functional addiction to benzos, good idea to detox safely under medical. In like at a treatment center, they're going to put you in detox and they'll monitor you and what have you. But alcohol withdrawal can literally stop your heart in a nanosecond. Mm-hmm. Benzos, at least, everything is so slow, right? That or so, altered.
Drawn out.
Yeah. But not alcohol. So, but nonetheless, I would not, depending on how much anyone is using, I would never go at it alone, right? I would never go at it, not in this day and age. Go to a treatment center or a clinic. Outpatient clinics are available too, and there are all sorts of resources that are not $120,000 to 28 days. There are some wonderful resources. We have one in Virginia here that is $3,000 a month. I mean, that's now we're talking, right? And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. And people who used to be clients are the ones who are running the program there.
Where is that? Can you actually tell the audience?
That's in Winchester.
What's it called?
I knew you'd ask me that.
If you don't remember, it's okay. Maybe you can text it to me later.
I'll email it to you. I'll email it to you.
Or you know what you could even do on this video later? Leave it in the comments and I'll pin it at the top so everybody can see it.
Okay,
because I mean, my rehab was between $45,000 and $55,000 a month, depending on your room. You know what I mean? So I got 21 days there, and then the insurance kicked my ass out. They said
that's right. And you have no more. Right, and then it's like, okay, I gotta white knuckle this one, right?
Yeah. And I was gonna say too, I had a seizure in '99 from alcohol withdrawal, and they had to snow me with Ativan and put me in a coma because my heart rate, they could not get it below 165. They snowed me. It took up. It wound up being at the end 64 milligrams of Ativan to put me in a coma, and I was in a coma for 7 days.
Oh my God, Chris!
Yeah, it's a miracle. My own doctor said it's a miracle.
It's a miracle you're alive. But you see, you have a purpose. You're here for a reason.
I must. I don't know what it is, Kimberly, but I must.
Look at you. You're here. You're here for a reason, right? And look what you're doing. I mean, look at all these people you're helping, right? I mean, it's amazing. Really, truly amazing. I mean, you are a miracle. Every one of us, is a miracle, right? But, oh my God. Yeah. There's another place in Tennessee. I think it's, Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee, and that's $2,500 a month. And
wow.
There are a bunch of places that they run. You don't get a sauna, you don't get a massage, can't get a mani-pedi, but you get treatment and you get recovery. And most of these places are very AA based. So if someone's not into AA, they may buck up a bit about that. But as I say, if your way hasn't worked, try another way. And AA might be it, or Recovery 2.0 might be it. There's a lot of roads. There are a lot of roads to get to Rome, right?
Yeah. Right. Casey Robinson, thank you for the $10. He said these shows are the ones that mean the most. Thank you and your guests.
Oh.
Yes, they definitely are. This has been fantastic, Kimberly. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think if there's any more questions I have for you off the top of my head. I can't think of any. and it doesn't seem like there's many from the chat. Jesse Roth said, I find it comforting in a way, Kimberly, that you address mental health as well. I'm not personally an addict, but I suffer severe depression, and these help for different ways of thinking.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, because when we suffer depression, again, we want to look at like what's under that, right? The part of you that has flooded your being with depression, right, is a part of you, and it's completely blended so that all of you is feeling depressed, right? So when we start to connect to the depression rather than pushing depression away and sort of befriend the depression and get to know it and have a conversation with it even, then amazingly things start to settle down, right?
Yeah.
I've discovered over time that some of the greatest fears that my clients have are of actually connecting to these parts of them, because they're afraid that they'll get swallowed up in a black hole. And what they discover is when they start to touch a little bit that pain, that whatever, is that it starts to open up and soften, and they start to see the light. They don't get swallowed into a hole. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling better, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm feeling relief, So yeah. Thank you, Lefty Guns Pool Hall.
Yes, that is a friend of mine. Lefty is a good kid.
I love it. I just love the names.
Yes, he has struggled as well. And I believe the last question I wanted to ask you is for everybody in the audience that's currently addicted or looking for a way out of this, maybe has hit their rock bottom. What would you suggest as a first step into recovery from where they are now as an active addict?
Yeah.
See, I've always said, for me, it was just getting away. I called crisis intervention one day. I couldn't take it anymore. I absolutely hit my rock bottom. I called them. They got me into a facility. Luckily, it was a beautiful facility. And I feel that not only the medical component, being treated with Librium and things like that to help my detox, help me get through that first 7 days, stuff like that. Also the psychological stuff, the clinical treatment. But I feel like just the simple act of getting away from it all to where I wasn't in my city, there wasn't cocaine around me or in my pocket 24 hours a day. I didn't have access to alcohol. I feel like that was the main key to me getting clean and sober.
I'm with you on that, especially if if it's become like, if you're drowning in it, right? If you're drowning in it and you're going under, right? And it. And that part of you says, I gotta live.
Yeah.
Right? There's that voice in your head that says, I gotta live. I want to live, right? Then, I'll send you a list of all of these lesser expensive resources that you can share with your audience. But if you can if you can pull $3,000 together or $2,500, always the big challenge is, do they have a bed? But give it a try. Give that 30 days a try. Give that 28 days a try, right? And the moment you walk into a treatment facility, basically you have to say, uncle, okay? Uncle. And you can't, you just have to shut up, get out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
And just say, okay, you tell me to get up, I'm going to get up. You tell me to lie down, I'll lie down. I'll do whatever you say, right? Yeah. And if you've reached that point where you're willing to say, all right, uncle, I can't do this by myself anymore. Clearly, I am not my best physician here. I'm not my best friend. Then I think that's your first step on a road to recovery that really will stick. I mean, really stick. I really believe that. I think if we go in because, well, mom said, dad said, husband, wife said, we're not doing it for ourselves. And I think that it's when we do it for, it's a selfish, recovery can be very selfish in the best sense of the word, right? So we suddenly take a look and say, wait a minute, this is my life. This is me. And, I've been killing myself. I'm surrounded by a bunch of jackasses. Yeah. I'm out. I don't want this shit anymore. I've got a dysfunctional family. I've got a nutcase for a boyfriend. What the fuck? I'm out. Right. And going to treatment, or, in my case, just walking into a room of AA and sitting my ass down and saying, okay, this is where I can come to every day away from the insanity.
Yeah. You have to surrender. You really do. You have to surrender.
Totally. And that word for so many people who are still in active addiction is like an anathema. That's like, no way, I'm not going to surrender. Don't tell me to surrender, right? And really surrendering is just saying, yes, it's true. I have a problem. That's surrender, right? Yeah. And I have a problem. I'm not doing so good. And I think maybe you might know better than me. So would you mind guiding me and showing me how to do this? Because I kind of had enough,
Yeah. There's a little bit of arrogance every addict has, that they have to just give up and say, okay, I don't know all the answers, because my best ideas so far have gotten me here. You know what I mean? So
precisely, right?
Yeah.
Precisely. And I love what Johnny Chrysostomu has said.
We call him Johnny the Greek.
Johnny the Greek, right? Surrender it over to the staff. Don't fight it, but you're wasting your time if you're going to make mommy or wife or kid happy. Amen. All the wrong reasons to go to treatment, right? It's got to be about, hey, I want a better life. I want to live I want to live, first of all. And then I want a better life, because one thing I know for a fact, and I'm a walking example, and that is, once I put it all down, I had a better life, and it only got better and better and better and better. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have imagined that I'd be on a YouTube live talking with someone about what? No, what?
In my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd be hosting one. So I hear
right?
you,
and a successful one at that, right? I mean, really successful. Look at what, So, I think,
what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought, but I don't remember now. But that's what it was. As far as doing it for yourself or doing it for other people. Out of those 12 people that I was in there with, I was the only one that put myself there. Everyone else was forced by an employer or a partner, maybe in a business, or a spouse. Or in one case, the woman, her kids forced her into the place, her grown children, and they all relapsed within a year. I was the only one that didn't relapse, but I was also the only one who put myself there. You know what I mean? For my own reasons. Nobody forced me.
Yeah. And when we go for you, right? I mean, this goes back to your question of what, if you're still in active addiction, what do? You've basically got to, say to yourself, do I want to keep doing this and play Russian roulette and die? Because you will ultimately, one way or another, you're going to die. Three things are possible. You're going to end up in jail. You're going to go crazy and psychotic. You'll end up in a psych ward, or you're going to be dead. If you're driving drunk, you could be dead. If you're driving stoned, you could be dead. I mean, all sorts of fucking things can happen that are terrible, right? You end up in the wrong neighborhood trying to score, you could be dead. So the question is, do I want to live? Right? Do I want to live? Is something within me worth living for? The answer, I guarantee you, no matter how low you are, is yes. Right?
Yeah.
Because the fact that you have a life, this precious human life, is enough to take that first step. And then, like I said earlier, there are many roads to Rome. So whichever step you take it.
And that's one of the best things, you've said, I think, during this whole thing, is that's the question everybody needs to ask themselves. do I want to live? That's it. Ask yourself that every day, every time you use, every time you pick up, do I want to live? And then only you can make the choice to either live or die. That's what it really comes down to. So I appreciate that a lot, because that's something, that's a tool you can use every day. Write it somewhere, write it on a mirror, write it on the refrigerator. Do I want to live?
Right?
Yeah, sticky notes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because until you ask yourself that question.
And the other thing I tell my clients, and I'm sure you've got other things going here that so I don't want to talk your ears off here, but
no, go right ahead.
The other thing I tell my clients is, what's the best that could happen if you quit? Not what's the worst that could happen, but what's the best that could happen if you quit? If I quit, what is the best that could happen here? Well, let's see. I mean, my brain could clear up a little bit. You know, my thinking could get sorted out. Maybe I might take a shower more regularly. Yeah, what's the best that could happen?
You'll save money. You might meet somebody.
Yeah,
you might get a new job. You start a whole new life. The sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit when we look at what's the best that could happen here.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Not what's the worst, what's the best that could happen. And just, yeah. So, yeah, and I'm seeing questions like, or comments here about gambling, porn addiction. Yeah, all of these are doing one thing and one thing only, and that's numbing the pain.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. And
you don't have to be using a substance.
No, exactly. So numb the pain and, shop. Numb the pain and gamble. Because whatever that pain is, if I gamble, I'll feel better. It's that chasing the high. And it really is, it's a dopamine high that we're chasing. But that dopamine high is coming from an outside source, right? And that is never going to heal or lead to satisfaction. It's only going to create suffering. From the Buddhist standpoint, the Buddha had it right. There's a source, there is suffering in the world. We know that. Birth, death, old age, sickness, there's suffering. But there's a cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering is our mind. Our own mind creates that suffering, reaching out constantly, trying to get something outside of ourselves. Oh, it's going to be better over here, or I'll do this, or right? But then there is a way to end suffering in our life. And the end of suffering is our own mind and being with ourselves as we truly are. When we know who we are and know who we truly are, we have no suffering. So the Buddha was really right on about that.
Yeah, I'll say, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there was Johnny the Greek said, surrender. We already surrendered to the drugs or addiction. It's scary to surrender to the unknown when all you have known is to feed the habit to feel better. But I had to make it my choice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you surrendered once.
Jimmy the Greek, that's beautiful, right? Yeah, I mean, we surrender to drugs and then we wonder, well, why can't I surrender to sobriety? Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to walk off a cliff for sure and I'm going to fall, Yeah,
and Johnny's right. It's the fear of the unknown. It's so much easier to just keep using. It's so much easier.
Yeah, just keep doing what I do and then, that I'm safe. I'll play it safe, right? Except the only problem is I keep doing what I'm doing and I keep using and what have you, and I keep alienating or getting into fights or whatever it is that I keep doing, and it's not getting any better. Wonder why, And, wonder why. So it is that unknown of, oh my God, but if I give it all up, then what am I going to have? Yeah. And that is sort of like that fear question that arises within us, right? If I give up drugs, if I give up alcohol, then what? Then I'm going to be like, I can't, right? And no, yes, you can, because if you give that up, then you're opening up. It's like this image of being so closed in, nothing can come in, right? But if we open, all this wonderful good stuff can come in, Same principle with alcohol and drugs. If we remove the alcohol and drugs, say no more, thank you very much, then we open ourselves to receive so much more. and it's light filled, right?
It is
light filled. That's why I think that, the spiritual path, for me at least, has really been what has transformed my life and helps to transform the lives of my clients. Connecting to something so much greater and beautiful and beyond, right? The universe, the cosmos, I don't care what the hell you call it. I had one client who absolutely was, tried and true atheist. No way, there is no God. Fuck it, that's it. And
that's
I was
me.
like, yeah. And I was like, fine, that's not a problem. We can work with that, right? We can work with that. Of course, there's no guy in a sky over there. No, of course not. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to have you do some nature walks. Go walk in nature. Go be with trees and go be around sunshine and look at some birds and butterflies. And as trite as that sounds, look at the flowers, look at the grass. Look, what a miracle this stuff is, right? Oh, how calm am I feeling in nature and being in the, and you know what, when I look at the sky at night, wow, right? Wow. And when we connect to that wow called life, doesn't matter what you call it, good orderly direction, I don't care what you call it, right? It is the is of is.
Yeah.
And that's what heals. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Kimberly, this has been absolutely amazing. I knew it was going to be good because you're Don's wife. There was no way. There was no way it wasn't going to be fantastic and informational and everything else. This was an absolute honor. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot, and I guarantee you have made a difference in somebody's life in this chat. I guarantee it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Chris, thank you for everything you do. It's extraordinary. And I just thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. It's an honor. But I really mean it. What you're doing is it's brilliant. And I keep doing it because you've got a message, you've got hope, you're doing it. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. I've been telling a lot of people about you. So.
Oh, really? Good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You should check into Addiction and Recovery on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell them only to watch the Addiction and Recovery show.
Yeah, right.
Because the other ones, they might be a little turned off. There's a lot of nasty stuff. Yeah, a lot of nasty stuff goes on here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, before you go, I want to help you plug any social media. I have everything down on the ticker down here. If people want to see, there is Kimberly's phone number. You can call or text her, she said, with any questions or anything you may want to ask. There's also her social media, her Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So guys, write that stuff down. And is that okay if people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Texting is best. Phone is impossible because if I'm with clients, it's impossible to pick up the message, call back with it, so texting is the best. You can reach me through my website contact thing. I'm offering groups for free right now. Spiritual healing and prayer and mantra, 2 separate groups. If you're in recovery and you happen to be a professional person in recovery, like in the treatment field, I have a 12-step based group that I do on Mondays. Just again, fill out the contact sheet and fire it off, and I'll put you in the system and get you on the invite list, and then you go to a Zoom meeting. I'm also currently taking clients. And then the name of the book is Rise in Recovery, The Spiritual Path for Healing Addiction. And hopefully it'll be out summer. There is a Facebook page called Rise in Recovery. I try to keep up. My blog is also on my website. And here I am, and there you are.
And it's www.kimberlyberlin.com, correct?
Correct.
And that Kimberly has an E before the Y. Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's like Kimberly Diamond Mines in Africa.
There you go.
I was named after the Kimberley Diamond Mines because my father wrote a movie about a diamond heist with an heiress to the Kimberley Diamond Mines. don't ask. The crazy
Wow.
people. So that's
What
how
an interesting life you've had, Kimberly. Listen, guys, do not pass up on this opportunity. Reach out to Kimberly and become a part of these groups if you can join in. I might do so myself, actually.
All right.
And the only other thing I wanted to say, I got a text from your wonderful husband.
Oh, yeah.
He said, if you want to hear more from Kimberly on the issue of trauma and medicine, tune in Sunday afternoon at 2 to Jimmy Calandra's A Bath Avenue story, where she will be Jimmy's special guest. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
There you go. That's fantastic. 2 p.m. on Jimmy's channel, guys.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Many, many blessings to you and to your wife. And I hope you feel better from this wretched COVID.
Thank you.
And also many blessings to every single one who was on today. I'm new to this reading, chat, and talking at the same time.
Yeah, you get used to it after a while.
Yeah, so I hope I didn't miss, or I'm sure I missed a lot of people, but yeah, I'm just very, very grateful for everybody being here and listening, and thank you.
No, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for everything you shared with us. Thank you for giving us some knowledge about these things. And hopefully one day you can come on again.
I would love it. I would love it. Now you have to tell me how to get myself off here, or do you just automatically get me off? I
can remove you, but if you just click off of your browser, whatever, it should, that should be it.
Remove from stream? No,
there you go. That'll work. Yeah, you can do that. Too. Thank you again, Kimberly. Talk to you soon.
God bless. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye. Wow. That was hands down, guys, the best addiction and recovery show we've had yet. I want to thank Kimberly Berlin again. That was amazing. I'm going to listen to this show over and over again, because every now and then I get distracted. I look at the chat and I missed something she said. I want to hear all of that again. Hopefully you guys watch it again as well. And please use this information on the ticker to reach out to Kimberly. It can only help you. I hope everybody learned something today and, gathered some information that maybe you could use in the future. Some coping tools, things like that. Coping skills, I should have said. And I'm quite sure all of you got something good out of this stream. Thank you again to Kimberly Berlin and Don Berlin, our friend, for making it possible. We love you, Don. We love you, Kimberly. And you guys are welcome to join on this show anytime you'd like. Anytime you'd like. My platform is your platform. So let me see what the chat has to say a little bit. Junior Lollipop said amazing. Thank you, Junior Lollipops. Majorly Awesome said great show. El Khayyam Putz said legendary. Jesse Roth, what a great woman. Frankie Rizzo, awesome show. Definitely. Jane Creek, awesome show. FPS. Junior Lollipops, the Berlins are great people. Yes, they are. Absolutely. What a hell of a show. So listen, I guess that's it for the addiction and recovery stream today. I do want to say this, even though there's only 60 people here as opposed to our usual 250 or so, I am fully aware that the arrest affidavit in the Idaho murders was released. I have it in my possession. Okay. Some of you may have already been filled in on it, but I am going to be doing a show about this whole case and this arrest affidavit and everything it contains around, depending on SoFlo. I'm going to talk to SoFlo and see when he's doing his next show. But at the latest, I'll be doing it at 10 o'clock tonight. I already have it scheduled. I'm sure you guys saw the thumbnail. So click reminder on that. So you get an alert. Okay. And I'm going to talk about some other MobTube related things tonight. So I just want to let you guys know. I'm all over the Idaho murders thing. I have been. The only reason I haven't done a show on it in the last few days is because I don't want to repeat the same stuff over and over again. I want to make sure there's enough things to talk about, enough information to give you guys, and do it that way. So tonight will be it. Thank you guys for being here. You know what I always say. Stay strong. Continue on your road to recovery. If you ever need anything, you could reach out to me. And now you even have Kimberly Berlin to reach out to, a brilliant woman who would be happy to speak with you and help you. All her information is on the bottom of the screen. So write it down before I end the stream, but if you don't get a chance to, you could watch it back, write it down then. There's the number to the National Addiction Hotline. There's the number to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And coming up is Kimberly's contact information, all of her social media, her phone number, everything. So write that stuff down, guys. Put it in your purse, wallet, man bag. If you're a kangaroo, put it in your pouch, whatever you got to do. All right, guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you again to Kim and Kimberly and Don Berlin. We love you guys. You're the best. You add so much to this channel, and especially to this specific stream. I appreciate you, and so does everyone in the chat. I love you all, and until next time, salute.